Are we ready? We are ready. Hello everyone, and welcome to this discussion of work environment. I'm so glad that there are so many of you here in the audience, although it's still Friday, it's a working day. But those of you who are maybe on vacation, it is still nice to have you here and listen about working and working environment. So our panelists here today are, from my left side, Agne Aija, Director of Central Operations from the Estonian State Forest Management Center; Krister Haglund, Chairman of the Board of Milton Services in Ukraine, CEO for the Finnish Fair Corporation and Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications at Finnair; Tiina Saar-Veelma, Occupational Happiness Specialist and Psychologist; and Jari Haganen, Research Professor from the Finnish Institute of Occupational Health. And I am Elo Ellermaa. I'm a Senior Consultant at PR and Government Relations Agency Meta Advisory. So before we dive deep into this discussion today, let's do a small introductory round with a small fun exercise, hopefully. So imagine it's Monday morning, you are walking into the office, and the song starts playing quite loudly. So what is this one song that gets you going, that gives you this energy to start an 8-hour working day and to start the whole working week? Let's start from here, Agne.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, you can now. So Elo gave this exercise for us before, and I have to say that I spent quite a time yesterday evening going through my my Spotify list, and of course it was first I thought that okay, Queens would be the easiest choice or something like that. So, but there were a few options still, but then I thought that I go with the best day of my life. It's not very common, but it's from the American authors, so you can check it out if you like.
Let's go on.
Yeah, this was new for me, but it was very fun and then also time efficient for me, because for me it was immediately clear, and it goes like this: Voiko ihanammin päivä enää alkaa, onko ihanampaa aamua kuin tää, and so forth. And this is John Liebkin, the Finnish pop singer who had this song in the, I think it's something 70s, I think 60s, 70s. And when I think about it, it makes such an impact for me, because when I was in the army, then when you woke up the first morning in army, then this song was played ironically very loud all over the barracks, and it was so fun. And it's a good song, and I like it, and it's beautiful. That could it be a better day? Could it be a more beautiful morning? The birds are singing, and your hand is in mine. So wonderful.
Thank you, and Tiina.
Yes, I agree. That was very exciting exercise, and during pandemic time, I took a DJ course because I thought that maybe my work is disappearing also. So I prepared for second career, and since then I can say that there is no one song, but there are always lists, as you said. And yesterday I came from France, so I often Shazam music, and maybe I just give you an example. This is the latest one in my, so yeah, that could be. Why not?
Sounds good. Jari?
Fantastic choice. First I have to say this Krister's lovely morning song, that this is what I used to sing to my son when he was a teenager, and you know teenagers don't get up, and he hated me for that song. But okay, I was happy to be a teenager when the punk rock emerged in the late 70s. So my song apparently comes from that time. I used to be a punk rock singer as well, and my choice would be, does anybody know this? Ian Dury's Reasons to be Cheerful, Part 3. Ian had suffered from polio when he was 7 years old. He suffered from all his life of the consequences of this, and then he has this wonderful Cockney dialogue song, Reasons to be Cheerful, all the reasons that we have to be grateful for. So check that song if you don't know.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I think what we have learned here already is that people are really different. People are really different at what motivates them, what keeps them going, and so on. So let's now try to discuss this further, and let's start from the very beginning. Actually, let's start with job advertisements and applying for a job. So I think a job ad is a two-way street. One thing is what the company says, and lately when you look at job ads, what they say is everything beautiful. They say that they have the best salary, they have the best team, they have all the support you need, the best environment, and so on and so on. Can all this actually be true at the same time? So, okay, let's start from here.
I actually believe that it's today already impossible actually to promise something that you couldn't bring on, to the table. But of course, the job ad is the selling ad. So you have to sell yourself because we all want the best people. So, but how you get them, so to say, if you don't say that you have best this and that, and then you support them. So, but you can't twist it too much, because if you're actually not prepared to offer this one, so the word gets around. So I don't think that there are too much air in those, but yeah. But when you say that all the advertisements are the same, I don't think so. There are the very dull ones still. So and maybe there should. So because they are just saying that this is the work, because not all the ones don't have the, I don't know, free fruits on fridges and things like that. Those are not all the workplaces around Estonia, unfortunately.
Is it the same in Finland? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would agree with Agne, and when I compare Estonia and Finland, I mean, when I read those ads, it's very difficult to really compare it, I would say. But of course they are quite fancy and very positive and so forth. But at least I think that if I put an ad out, it has to be accurate, and if you often you see, for example, competitive salary. And a competitive salary, we know more or less what a competitive salary for a certain position is. So then, of course, you are prepared to pay that competitive salary, and one who is applying for the job also knows it. But I think, because I believe very much in transparency and building trust, so I think that as an employer, if you are a lousy organization and so forth, and then you actually would gain so much if you would just state in your ad that yeah, it's this and that, and it's a competitive salary, but we have one big problem, and we want you to fix it. That could work.
Yeah, I could also here advocate like job seekers or employees view, and there is certain things they really require nowadays from workplaces. And do you know what is the most, like attractive thing that they want? Anyone? Yeah, absolutely. Flexibility is number one, and what we see, it's true. The employers, they put this flexibility to job ads as well, but often it's very misunderstood thing, because if they now talking about this real work, then it turns out that, okay, we have like one remotely working day, and then you have to be in office, or you really cannot decide your way of working. And that is a huge problem, because if you talked about trust and transparency, then it's not there. It's only ads and nothing more. So I have, maybe it's a small solution already, but nowadays what job seekers want, they want like tailor-made careers. Basically, their desire is that manager or team lead or employer asks from them what you personally want to be happy. So basically, we should like provide like tailor-made motivational packages, and that is something like needs to talk about.
What is the main thing in Finland that companies compete in? What is the main thing they say in their job ads?
Well, I don't know that for sure. It depends on the organization, company culture also. But I would say that this job advert is the first phase in building bonds between the employer and the future employee. So it's building this psychological contract, so to speak, so that if I give my best to this company, what do I give in return? And if that does not correspond, then you probably are not that loyal anymore. Don't feel you are not so motivated, and so it's indeed the core issue is trust here, and then employers should be very, very honest in what they promise. And I would like to hear as a job applicant also what is not going so well and what are being done in order to improve in this sense. That would also be very. And then one other side is not only what the workplace promises, but what it is expected of these ideal workers, and that is also very interesting. My colleague has studied that, and historically also in Finland, and whereas in earlier job advertisements it was what kind of employee was searched was that you are sober, you don't drink alcohol during the work days, and that was quite enough already. Perhaps you are also competent, but that you can perhaps learn also with the seniors. And nowadays you can expect really that you should already by now know everything, and that is another problem perhaps.
Maybe a small comment here. So one thing is job ads, and they are quite maybe similar nowadays, but there is one more, maybe more important thing, which is like meaning of job. And there we see that companies can be different, or the areas are different. So if we can like speak through this meaning or purpose, then it's totally different thing, and maybe all those small things are not so important anymore. It's like kind of like obvious then.
Agne had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention to this, that the flexibility and mentioning it in a job ads, because I'm pretty sure that none of us have seen the job ad mentioning flexibility about the teachers or the construction workers or the doctors, because I think in those means that we are discussing here right now, we have a focus just very much in office workers. So, but there are so many other professionals that actually don't have same type of.
But Agne, we don't speak only about time flexibility. Flexibility could be that I can maybe probably decide where my career goes. So, in that sense, every job can be, in my opinion, flexible.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, but I would like to look this topic a bit wider. That was my point.
And Christer?
Yes, you are right, Agne. There's a huge difference between, and also, I mean, generally speaking, also blue-collar work and white-collar work. And then public and private, of course, also because I have been in management and a leader for almost in my entire active life. So I have seen a lot of changes, and I've been also both in public and private life. And the tools you have as a leader or a manager are totally different when we speak about public and private. So that is good to keep in mind. When it comes to flexibility, I could say that it was interesting some 15 years ago or something like that. Suddenly when you were recruiting people, then young people started, they had in their applications, they had like that they value family and free time, and that was unheard of when I was applying for jobs. You had never put anything like that. Now it kind of, it would be odd if it wouldn't be in that text. And flexibility, me as recruiting people, I definitely want to have flexibility for sure. But it's a two-way street, of course. That it goes both ways, because every organization needs people that can flex when there is a need for it for the organization. And you need to have those resources. But the other hand, then you need also to respect the flexibility that your staff have.
We are going to talk about, Jari, you wanted something to say?
Yeah, one more thing about this flexibility, at least in Finland after the pandemic. The question is also, where do I work? I want to work at home or my summer cottage, or perhaps I have a villa in Paide, I can do my job there. And now companies are struggling with this flexibility issues, because it's also important for the company, for the social purposes and for the joint collaboration, learning, taking care of young employees, not to have too much of that sort of flexibility that you don't show up at your workplace anymore. I don't know whether you have same debate or thing going on in Estonia. I would be curious to hear.
We do. But we are going to talk about the flexibility a little bit later on. But let's now move over to the applicants. When we have this job ad, the company promises all the best things, but on the other hand, what they require from the applicant is also, these requirements are quite tremendous. So they ask for the certain degree, a certain experience, a certain time of experience, and so on. So they are kind of, someone already mentioned that they are looking for super employees. What does this mean actually? Do the applicants know that this is actually not true and they still try, or does it affect their mind actually that in the end they might not even apply anymore because they feel that they are not needed anywhere because they don't have all the requirements? Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I myself, when I have an ad out, I don't want to be too specific, because I want. I think it's very important in the team, in your organization, that there is a diversity among the staff members, so that you have different kind of knowledge, different kind of personalities, because in the end that gives much better results. And if you block out certain persons, I don't think it's a good idea, because I mean in a process industry you might need robots, but you don't need it in kind of working places where I have been in. So yeah, I always prefer to have it more in general terms in that sense.
Yeah, in Estonia there are also companies that do that. They are actually, there are job ads that say that we don't have any specific requirements. They only want a certain type of person, but they don't need a degree or certain experience. They are going to make this person who she's supposed to be. But what is your experience?
I would say it depends on the position. So I had experience that we were looking for the social media specialists, And so to say, we have the maximum amount of the candidates. And my HR told me that it seems that everybody who has the Insta account thinks that they can do the job. So, but, and we didn't ask very much in there. No degree, of course, we were looking some experience and things like that, but we wanted to actually to speak to the wider public. And we were actually looking that maybe really some young person could start from that position. But when I'm looking for the board member, for example, you can't be too white there. So of course you have to require certain abilities, experiences, education, things like that. So, and I think in human researches, the HR people usually say that you just need one right candidate. So yeah, you have to speak to the right one.
Tina.
So yeah, that's true that the job demands are increasing, and there is one aspect I have thought about, which is there are many professions which needed like longer preparation previously, and now we think that we can solve it with onboarding programs, for instance. And also there is one very nice quote from Peter Koppel, if you know him. He says that many organizations would gladly hire one person to do work of 2 people and achieve the results of 4 people. And it's quite true in my opinion. So.
Jari.
Yeah, I think also in the interests of the employer should be to make explicit to itself whether they are searching for a person who fits for the short-term goals or also in the longer term, because the work-life demands, requirements change quite a lot, and then it comes to what Krista said, that also flexibility in this recruitment can be a really big thing. Or if you think very narrow-minded that, okay, this person is highly skillful for the present job, or then if you have this longer vision also. So.
And maybe one small comment, not only like skills and knowledge, but also like personal traits as well. You have to be quick learner, you have to be like adaptable and social and etc. There are many lists of like nowadays personal competencies as well you should kind of fit.
Which is
how do you measure a quick learner when you interview people?
So we got this exercise, quickly find the song.
So, which is more important, to have a person with a perfect traits, or to have a person with perfect experience and maybe a certain degree? Which do you think is more important? I think it depends on the job. I understand you cannot be a constructor without any knowledge in constructions, but still, if you would have to hire someone. And let's say you have a choice between having a person with a perfect experience, perfect degree, but their personality is not something that would actually fit in a company, but you have another person who doesn't have any degree in that field and any experience, but they would fit perfectly into this company. Jari.
Well, if there is such thing as bad personalities, so I have perhaps some experiences, and I would try to avoid that kind of, because then you anticipate problems in the later. For instance, if a person is really not wanting that job or does not want to collaborate, for instance, wants to work alone only, and then it can be really bad thing in the longer term. But otherwise, I would say that the context is a defining character, that we have like a team of people, and who would be the new one who would kind of fulfill what we already know and can and how we operate, and to have something that brings something perhaps new to this group would be. And it can be like a personal attribute, but more often it's more like a motivational issue or perhaps a skill issue too.
Christel?
Yeah, I could take, because perhaps an extreme example from aviation industry, since I was working there for 10 years. For example, when you recruit pilots, then you recruit really black and white persons, because in their job in the cockpit there is only 2 ways of doing your job. the right way and the wrong way. And I would definitely not ever be a good pilot, because I'm always seeking for new solutions and new ways to do it, and that's not the place to do it. Then again, these black and white persons, they are really, really difficult then in working communities, because they know exactly always how things should be done, and because they are recruited because of that. So yeah, that's just an extreme example, but.
So I think this mindset has been for a long time that let's hire and expect good personal traits first, and then everything is like we can study and be quick learners and etc. And of course there are professions we do not consider in that sense. But I think maybe this like new type of thinking could be that if we have good company values, then we actually can melt different type of persons into it. And this is like kind of like culture which really like holds or helps us in that sense. Because in hospitals it's quite similar situation. Not all doctors are like happy-minded and nice persons, but they are super professional. So,
okay.
But I also think that the candidates and the young people, they should a bit lower their expectations, because there are junior positions and it's kind of like obvious that you will start from the first steps. But I think this is a problem. I was just looking for some survey that said that IT junior positions would like to have somehow 2,500 in their first salary. So of course, yeah, there might be positions where it's possible, but this is something I think that our schools could actually draw attention. So you can't start from the top; you have to go there.
I think the problem is in Estonia that in many companies we don't have these strong training programs that we take students and we train them and that we make them believe in the company and what are the purposes of the company and make them part of it already, so they could start from a low position but they know what they're doing, they know the bigger goal. But I think that is actually a problem here in Estonia. Kristen?
Yeah, I think I am myself a perfect example of that, because I had a major in science of literature, so I would not have qualified for a single one of the positions I had during my entire life if they would have looked only at the papers.
Yeah, the same for me. So we have mentioned superhumans, super employees here today already, but let's now go over to actual working place. So let's imagine that these super employees have been hired and they are now working and they are successful. So what does this actually mean to the employees that have been successful applicants at first and now they are successful employees? So is that it? Is everything okay with them and they can go on until they retire, or are there some obstacles in the way? Krister?
Well, I mentioned the public and private sector, and here is now we are coming to this difference, because in the public sector you have an employee who is really doing a great job. Of course, we all know that this person will eventually advance and get better positions within the organization, perhaps if it is an organization big enough that have those positions. But otherwise, the only reward that this person gets is actually that the person in question gets even more jobs, unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends on the person, of course. But so he or she is just loaded with more and more because the person has the capabilities, while the private sector has much more tools in the toolbox to give bonuses or to then promote or whatever. So this is, I would say, at least this difference you can see between the public and the private sector.
I think maybe it's just me, but I don't think that in Estonia we have this difference between public and private sectors when it comes to loading this really successful worker with new assignments.
Yeah, if you're looking at the cuttings that public sector are been doing over the years, so I think the situation is much worse than in the private sector.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, continuing from here, is it then okay? It's not because this hiring is only top of iceberg, right? And then everything starts. I worked for 6 years in IT company, and then we actually built this holistic approach or culture. They call it also seasonal approach, which means that spring is all about hiring right people, and then providing this good onboarding programs and support and etc. And then comes summer, which is all about communication, where information flows. Is it transparent? Do we have some, I don't know, gatherings and all these team events and etc. Then autumn is about professional growth and really putting value into my job, but also well-being is part of autumn as a sector. And finally, winter is looking back, celebrating success and giving feedback. And it should be kind of, holistic circle. And this hiring is only question about spring. But if we do not give information or we are not providing career opportunities, then it's short-term relationship anyway.
Jari.
You ask about these super performers, and I think they don't work in isolation, so they have colleagues around them. So what kind of colleagues are they? Are they egoistic? Do they want to have all the best tasks for themselves? So this is one issue. And then it's also a justice issue. Does the boss give the best tasks for these people because they can rely on, okay, this person does them in time, whereas others would want to have also motivating, engaging tasks where they can learn, they are perhaps not so fast. So it's also a social issue in the social context of workplace. And then this, I don't know who are these super performers, but I have done quite a lot of research around comparing workaholic employees, workaholic behaviors at work. So you have a obsession to work all the time. You don't enjoy what you are doing, but you feel this inner pressure to work all the time more than any boss expects. And then there are another type of passionate people at work, and they are engaged workers who really feel vigorous and dedicated and proud what they are doing. And they are more socially oriented. For instance, they have a better work-life balance because you have positive experiences at your work, so it crosses over to your private life also, whereas workaholic persons do not appreciate others. They are a little bit like victims, that they feel that, okay, nobody here works except me, nobody is here at Saturday evenings except me, and this kind of problems, so they don't appreciate their colleagues. So it can have many different kind of consequences of these who perform more than average. And I would say that mature workplace allows that there are differences in performances, that some people are more capable and quicker and they know better, they have better skills, but we should, in order to, at least in Finland, we have now this lack of employees nearly in every industry, and if we want to have people, we should accept that not everybody is willing to or capable of giving 100%. We need also those who can work half time or who are only learning and these kind of things.
Kristel?
Yeah, here you need also not AI but also EI, some emotional intelligence, that so that you can sense this and that you have a transparent working community that you are discussing all the time, because then also people's life situations they change all the time. So it's good to be aware of that, and when you have these these really excellent colleagues doing a lot of job and wanting to do even more. I look, for example, at Kerttu now sitting here, my former colleague who had such a desire to do more and more all the time. So then I had to, are you really sure that you can make it? Because then we come to another question close to what Jari was talking about, and that is burnout. And I mean, you cannot, you have the responsibility not to load too much also on your colleagues. So that is also a responsibility that the employer have.
But Agne first and then Tina.
Yeah, now I think we are talking about the leadership and the company culture here. So when you are on board, so everything that's going to happen depends on that. Because of course there are smaller companies, bigger companies, and then the smaller ones, the owners are often the ones who are leading, and maybe they have a bit different mindset. But I think that the companies there are more than 100 plus already, so you can't do it without having a certain mindset, certain values, and you have statements and the politics maybe already, or at least agreement how we do things. So, and I think those kind of very in age people, they will have the attention quite often, or someone will have a talk with them. So you can't be the solo player, because those ones, they can achieve very good results and very quickly, but the work environment turns bad as quickly as well. So this is the main thing. Actually, I think this was a column from 2022 that says that the main thing people are looking from the workplace is actually the good leadership. This is the first. So.
Tina first and then Jari.
So yes, maybe this is like sad news, but in my experience, what I see, at least in Estonian companies, always even leaders are not good examples there. They tend to write like work-related messages after 5 or even 6 p.m. So, and they are also very overwhelmed. Often I see that in Estonian companies, they even don't have like normal lunchtime. So, and office workers' calendars are open to others, so basically everyone can book your time, and you are not even bossing of your own life anymore. So that's kind of bad culture in my mind, and it of course it influences, and it causes also this what was the syndrome, imposter syndrome, because when everyone is doing that and my boss is doing that, then
I have to be doing it. Yeah.
And that's why I think we got this quiet quitting trend for a while, because people really decided that I don't want to live like that. I really need back my personal life to myself to keep it this private time. Mm-hmm.
Jari.
Yeah, leaders indeed are always a role model. In good and in bad, they are role models for others, and it should be good to be aware of that as a boss. But then also for leaders, it's a huge challenge with these kind of workaholic or people who are ready to work at the expense of their health, because of course in the short term they produce a lot, they work for the company, and that's good for business. But on the other hand, what happens in the longer term, and how to restrict working okay, you are a good worker, you work 12 hours a day, should I say to you that, okay, stop working and work like 7 hours a day or something like that? And to be aware of that thing, to as part of your leadership role, that you should somehow also be able to lead well-being in the longer term. And I'm not sure that all the leaders are aware or willing to take that responsibility as part of their leadership role.
I think what Jari described before, like having different types of employees, it's the same thing that is going on in a classroom. You have students, pupils who are on a different level. You have to help some. Some are already ready and looking for new assignments. I think we grow up, but it still happens. We are still different, but we have to do the same job. So in a classroom, it is up to the teacher to see, to put everyone on the same level. But whose job is it when we grow up at a company? Is it leaders? Is it a good leader's job? Or does a good leader have to hire a very good HR people whose responsibility it is then? So what do you think? Whose responsibility is it to have all the employees feel that they are wanted, they are doing well, and so on?
People are always leaders' kind of main aim. So you will have business if you have people, because otherwise who is doing the job? So, and of course HR can never do the leader's job. So they are just there to provide some toolboxes and help and things like that. So, and as you said, that should we all be even? No, I don't think so, because we are different, and it's not the leader's job to make everybody even. But you have, as a leader, you have the obligation to treat your people as by their capabilities. I would say that this is the way we are actually we do the good job as a leaders. So if I see that you have more abilities, so I give you more demanding tasks as well, but not everybody has to be the same or the same level or even.
Mm-hmm. Tina?
Maybe some more experience in ProExpert. We actually built up a culture which was bossless. Over 6 years we did that, and I think finally we succeed quite well, because we had our values, and all teams, they were independent, they had their budgets, everyone knew what to do, and they had like purpose and etc. It's possible. There is no need for like leaders, but of course this company culture should be then very, very strong. And now talking about nowadays leaders, so there are also a list of requirements. For instance, those leaders should be like engaging and involving others, not only like giving tasks and being like, having this hierarchy. So, and this is quite challenging thing, I think, to be like to really like make space for your team mates and really ask from them what you want or what you think or how could we do. And all nowadays leadership approaches like go like this way: how to really engage, how to really involve, not to be like only one there. And yeah,
I think there's actually a saying that a good leader thinks that the team works for him, and a bad leader thinks that he works for the team. Vice versa, yeah.
Other way around.
Yeah, other way around. So my next question would be about micromanagement. I think it's in Estonia it's quite of a problem. What about in Finland? Is micromanaging something that leaders can drop and then everything would be better? Because as you said, leaders' job is to find the perfect people, not to do the job for them, the real assignments. But is it a problem?
Yeah, at least we discuss about micromanagerialism. I'm not sure to what extent it happens, but no studies perhaps, and difficult to define accurately, but I think more problem is nowadays that this kind of laissez-faire leadership, that the people are left alone. It can be like self-management thing, built on purpose over a long time, where people know their responsibilities, they have autonomy, all this well-thought thing. Then it still can be stressful, but then more often it happens like spontaneously. I think in Finland leaders often have so many different roles, and the last one, because of the busy schedules, meetings all the time, so the last thing often is that, okay, I should lead my people, I should discuss and listen to my people, and that is the thing then that may suffer as a consequence of lack of time. So perhaps that is that we lack this leadership. But one thing, sorry for this long talk, but not necessarily now, but I would also like to talk about what employees themselves can do, because this we always talk about when we talk about the work-life changes. We have all kinds of nasty things in our mind. We think of the problems that are nowadays in our work life and were not there 30 years ago. But there are also positive changes, and one thing is that employees are more and more able to shape, to craft their jobs, and to still to gain the goals of their jobs, but to personalize their jobs somehow more than ever before, because we lack these kind of jobs that Charlie Chaplin's Modern Types describe, that you cannot be spontaneous, and of course the pilot cannot be too spontaneous in the plane, but outside the plane, how he or she meets his crew and how he collaborates, all these things, that we have this kind of possibilities also to build better working lives, better working days ourselves nowadays, more than ever in work history.
Christel?
Yeah, the micromanagement, I think also it depends very much on organization. I've not seen too much of it, but I take one organization that I've seen it from my own experience, and that is the Foreign Ministry, and I guess that's the same for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in all the countries, because in those ministries they recruit very talented young persons, but they don't recruit actually, and it's very difficult at that stage to recruit persons with leadership because talents, because they don't have that experience to begin with, but then quite a few of them become ambassadors or directors or whatever at some point in their life, almost all of them, sooner or later. And then quite a few of them are not qualified for that job, even though they are really talented in what they were recruited for, actually. So that causes, at least in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland, we had, and I heard it in other countries as well, that there were every now and then there were problems in embassies, and it was particularly tricky because it was then far away from the headquarters, so it was quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I do a lot of workshops and trainings to leaders in Estonia, and once upon a time there was a company who asked that, okay, those are operational managers, don't do too much psychological blah blah to them. So, and then I wondered that what is like operational manager? Is this about micromanaging, only giving the tasks? Because what I see, what the managers are lacking for is still those emotional, intelligent things, how to really see my people, how to not be afraid after pandemic years. Even more, so they always ask how to motivate without money, how to really listen. Those are like still those basic things, and maybe it's how about those operational manager doesn't exist.
Okay.
And at first, I have to say that I'm very intrigued about this bossless company, but we have been discussing this with Tina before as well. But still, I would say that something just Christer mentioned, that if you are a leader, if somebody really has given you this responsibility, you should have this responsibility to collect different type of leadership toolkit. So, and I would say that if you start from one position, so somebody should teach you or make you aware. For example, I would say that this is something that called about situational leadership, and as a leader you should know about that, because if one person starts at the company, he does or she does different type of tasks or has the responsibility, but then life is changing or something in this company is changing, and none of us actually know everything from the first. So you as a leader, you have to take responsibility that you would change your leadership style with that person in that situation. So, and I think that those are things that were lacking in maybe in this in this process that you, Christer, actually described.
I could add, when I was thinking about it, about the leaders and how people get promoted also. We, fortunately, not that much anymore, but it still happens that we, to give some examples, that if you are a very good journalist, then you get promoted to managing editor. And if you are a very good medical doctor, then you get promoted to the head of the entire hospital. And so forth, and there have been some examples of very good pilots that have been promoted to run the company, and that doesn't simply work, and very seldom it works with good journalists being managing editors, because and that is, of course, then it is the big boss who has made the wrong decision ultimately. That if you are a good journalist, so then you need to keep that talent satisfied, and then you need to recruit a manager to run the company.
But I think this is changing, actually. It is changing, yeah. People don't want to have the management or the leadership position so much anymore. So.
But you still have to give this person who's really good at their job, you have to give them opportunities. And I think it's the horizontal and vertical development in the company, and which is changing, yes.
And maybe if I could add, then there is one symptom which we call like bored out, not burnout, but bored out, and it could also happen to best of us. Like I could be like professional in my work, but I still feel this bored out, which means that there are not maybe like easy solutions for promote such kind of specialist often. And I have wrote thesis about work happiness model. And one thing which came out that nowadays people expect like kaleidoscope careers. They want to be like, not talented, but they maybe need to organize their careers that there are different like approaches and skills. And I'm not only in one company. I want to also maybe write a book when I'm pilot at the same time, or teach others, or do something else. And often that could be like possibility for companies nowadays to organize such way this working.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it has to start from the schools, that we teach our children that there will be several different type of professions that you will have to do your life. So it should go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Nowadays we talk about 11 different careers during lifetime, because life is longer now. In my work, I see like 85 years old, like new beginners who want to learn something else and do something else and change their careers. So it's like new reality.
Jari.
I'm afraid that many young people are also anxious about this eternal world of possibilities, so we seniors and parents really need to support and encourage and speak of these 11 jobs in the future in a way that all the jobs are like good experiences, and try to do your best whatever you do, and to be realistic and to trust that you will find your own way where you can fulfill your kind of professional dreams. But this is also that we need to be cautious about this, because young people especially, feel very insecure about the choices that they have to make for the future, younger and younger all the time, and I don't like this development at all.
I wanted to speak about burning out a little bit later on, but I think we are already there, so let's continue with this one. I'm glad you mentioned bored out, because that is something that I am really interested in, because I have experienced it, and I didn't know what was happening to me, because I just felt like I didn't have enough assignments that I'm capable of, and it led me to not burnout, but be on the way to a burnout. So this is actually happening, and so maybe you can tell us more about what is bored out, and does it lead to burning out?
So I think this idea, maybe we are in kind of like gray area right now, because previously we thought that career should be like longer, and you are like, you are professional, then you work like 20 years in one place, or in Soviet Union we saw that people only had one workplace and that's all. So, and in certain professions also, you study for a long time, then you expect that now I have my workplace, I should do that. It takes time to get in that level. And then when people feel that, okay, I don't have enough like opportunities or excitement anymore, I know what I do it very well, and it's very like confusing feeling, all in all. So, and what I have felt, there is kind of, we call it like a line of work happiness. And we could say that here is like number 1, and here is like 10. So, and we can actually measure it. Where are you? Basically here, where is 10 points is kind of our, dream jobs. Actually, everyone have dream jobs. There is certain exercise we can do that we can remove geographical borders, we can remove like money as an obstacle, and even like skills and knowledge. And then if you ask, what is your like 3 dream jobs, what you want to do? So if you have time, then everyone could write something. Maybe I want to live in other country and do something for kids, or help, or write a book. So this is like 10. And now this 1 means that those are jobs I don't even consider with a big money. Often those are like, there are moral borders, or too routine works we don't like. So, and now what we see that people with this bored out syndrome, they are also like dropped in that place here. They also might feel that I don't see purpose anymore, I am tired of my colleagues, and they influence others as well. They are like stones in the lake. They make those ripples. And they are cynical, they use irony a lot. So, and even though those companies where they work could be like very nice ones, even with a good flexibility. So yeah. And for me, it's very interesting how we can like protect that, or measure, or what is happening, or where that frustration comes, and maybe they are lacking like good leadership, or some, maybe their best colleagues left company, they don't have those good, team vibes anymore. But yeah, it's very important to notice that not only being professional is not like work happiness.
But whose responsibility is it to notice the burnout? May it be the bored out, or may it be that someone has just overworked? Burning out is still burning out. Whose responsibility is it to notice it and to deal with it? I think it's a bit different in Finland than it is in Estonia.
Could I first continue a little bit, because this job boredom is really something that fascinates me too, and I've been studying it over a decade now, and to continue, and you also ask whether this boredom may lead to burnout, and it's interesting question, because usually we think that burnout comes from that there is too much of everything, too much time pressure, too much work, whereas boredom traditionally is considered as a result of there's too little of everything, too little challenges. And now we find in our recent study, now still under international harsh review, that they may develop in tandem together. And that is also, that seems to be in our study related to modern work-life characteristics. We talk about hindrance demands at work. So people may feel also in a good, like you said, leaders may get bored out, and experts we find that it's not only a blue collar, something like that issue, it concerns also white collar jobs. in cases where you feel that you are hindered to do your best at work, there may be bureaucratic constraints, there may be like role conflicts, and there may be like, this kind of red tape issues. I know how this job should be done. I could do it very fluently, but the regulations and bosses say to do it in a different way. So these are the modern work-life reasons to feel bored out, and that's why they may develop together with burnout symptoms. And that is a true challenge then for employers, that, okay, what do we do with people who are both burned out and totally lack motivation to do what they are expected to do? See, this boredom is like lack of motivation. One final thing, I constantly find in our studies that young employees experience more job boredom than elderly employees, and that is also an interesting issue to talk about.
Agla.
Yeah, I think it is very interesting, but aren't we going too far with that one? I'm really in a different party right now, it seems, but I think that it should be the employees' responsibility actually to develop themselves and not to get bored. Because if you are bored, please go find something, some other job, or learn something new. But this should be the employee's responsibility. We shouldn't take away all the responsibility and say that, okay, all the leaders or the companies should tend to that and find the ways how people can adapt their careers and should be promoted and find other jobs somewhere. Yeah.
Christer.
Yeah, I'm perhaps a little bit more humble to this, and when it comes to burnout, I think definitely it's also partly, and this boredom, also partly the responsibility of the employer, but it's not only an employer, of course, but I was mentioning this emotional sensitivity in the beginning and transparency. I think that the best way to deal with it is, of course, to have an open discussion and so forth, and see what is really possible. I think that when those phenomena exist, they exist very much due to lack of communication and openness.
Yeah, I totally agree with this communication. And one thing I have figured out is how do we know that there is those symptoms is that I personally use Norman Amundsen's values circle, and those are like personal values, because often companies have their own values and rules and etc., but there are personal values. And now if we really measure those, or we ask from specialists, please find your like 3 top ones and how satisfied you are now with your personal values, which could be also, I don't know, flexibility or purpose or learning or innovation. And then we see that often there are the problem with my own values. So those are not met anymore in my company. And of course it needs someone behind my back who really asks and takes care of that. And often I see this bore-out syndrome in schools. Teachers often feel that in hospitals, unfortunately, and it's not easy to say that study something else. They want to do it, but they are overwhelmed. They often don't have time. They are like stuck, basically.
I think that's, it's, I think the worst is when the two things come together, as you said, Jari, that you have a lot of assignments, you are overworked, but the assignments you have are not motivating. They are boring to you at some point. So I think that is the worst combination. So you said you had some interesting view on this, but what should an employee do then? What are the tools that they can do?
I don't have answers for all those kind of questions here, but of course, as I said, that I think people do have some free time still. You can be overwhelmed and things like that, but you can find time to learn some new things, that actually gives you some other kind of joy, which will maybe motivate you more. But my point was actually that we shouldn't take away the responsibility from the people. Not that we shouldn't be not concerned on things like that, but I say that people do have to have this mindset that I can change my life. I am the queen of my life, so to say. So, because if someone else is there, you can like put your all the wage in their soldiers. So I think that the changes will not come.
I think it's, as Jari said, that you see that it's more of the problem of younger generation.
Yeah.
But here is also a problem that we don't have in schools such kind of subject that who I am and what I really want to do in my life, basically. We're still lacking, at least in Estonia, we're still lacking this like long-term career courses, because that's why they might not know what is like my way.
I stick my opinion that you can do different things, so you doesn't have to choose it in, I don't know, 9th grade or something like that.
Jari.
I have called this job boredom as the last taboo in working life, as we started discussing about these super performers. So it's much more okay to say I work overtime, I'm all the time stressed, but who would go to her or his boss and say, oh, I lack challenges, I have too little to do, I'm bored. It's not that easy typically in company culture. But I agree with you totally that it's a both ways thing. It's a leadership issue, company issue, but it's also this bottom-up issue. This, what I mentioned, job crafting. We have a huge international, also Finnish research evidence that people can also craft their jobs, like for instance, seeking new challenges. There's an opportunity, there's certain tasks that would be really inspiring. Well, I could go and ask, can I join this project? Or I could start learning. I meet, in my job as a cashier, I meet people who talk different languages. Perhaps I could even, during my leisure time, learn the basic of certain language so I could discuss better with these clients and thereby enjoy more of my work. And we have a lot of evidence showing that this really also works. But when you are already burned out or bored out, lacking motivation, then you lack the energy to change your situation by yourself. It's a thing when you are engaged, enjoy your work, then you are more looking into the possibilities. Hey, I could do this also, I could perhaps learn new things, and but it's both ways.
Krister first and then.
Yeah, and it's of course ultimately, anyway, it is actually a little bit of a management responsibility. So I had now I gave a very simple advice to my daughter who started a new job during springtime. Everything seemed to be really nice, the working environment, the work, the salary, and so forth. And then she was working with her boss, and after some 3-4 months, she realized that her boss is not a good one. So she called me and said, asked me, what should I do? I said, get the hell out of there, because that person will not change. Of course, over time, people might change a little bit, but it takes too long time. So I would say that if you have a lousy boss, then just leave the company. It's not worthwhile to stay there and suffer.
So everything actually starts from the management board.
In my opinion, like I said, it's both have responsibilities, of course. I mean, if you stay on and suffer, that is partly, of course, your own responsibility also. But the poor leader can destroy so much.
Tina.
So yes, I also love that job crafting approach. But what I figured out is that there is one exercise we can all do. Basically, we can write down all our work tasks and select them tasks I don't like at all, then normal ones, and then exciting ones, or good ones, or super good ones. And now when we see that we have like let's say 80% of our work tasks are more like neutral or not like tasks, then there are already problem. But what I see, at least in Estonian companies, that they are lacking skills how to change those I don't like tasks to normal ones, or to take those away, because that could be also a problem why we finally have this burnout or bored out syndrome, because no one doesn't help us to reorganize our work. And this is also a question about management, yeah.
Okay, so now, do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
So my question is, what advice do you have for, get a microphone. What advice do you have for employees that are wanting to leave their position that may not be on the best terms with their employer, and how can they get good references for future jobs? Because I think everybody at one point or another has had a bad experience with an employer and looking to move out of the company. How can they turn that into something positive when the work situation is probably not the best for them?
Do I get you right that this is the leaving situation, but the recommendations will be bad afterwards? Is it so?
Well, we hope not.
How to get a good one?
How to get a good
But
one?
if you're not on good terms with a leader. Is leaving a company always a bad thing? Should it in 2023, should it be like a bad thing?
Oh, definitely not. People have to change their jobs. So, okay, I'm not sure that I know how to change the situation to get the good reviews. But I think that if in a new position and the candidacy, your references that the previous company gave you are not good, you should go and just be honest with the new employer. So if you are the first one who actually tends to attention to this situation or things like that, the first one always gets the, what is it? Yeah, okay, the perfect place to go further.
So I personally have used this value circle I talked about. So basically, yeah, I also prefer to be honest and maybe explain that leaving that here are my personal values and I really now feel that I don't meet those. So it's not like anyone's fault, but it is as it is. So yeah, to be like honest and humble, maybe even sometime, it's good. Yes, because we often tend to ask references from like previous employers, and that's true. And it's tricky sometimes if you really don't like the experience, but you need this good reference.
Jari?
And perhaps also first give some positive feedback for the boss and the experience that you have received. So it might be that he will reciprocate when he writes the recommendation.
Yeah, I also agree with everybody here actually that you have to be honest, and I don't see it. Then it must be really lousy leader if he doesn't give you a neutral, adequate recommendation. But if that is the case, I mean, it's probably possible. Then to be honest, when you are applying for another job, because if your job history otherwise is good, so then it's very understandable. A good boss, and you want to have a good boss in the future anyway. So he or she will understand it perfectly if you take up the topic.
Yeah, and one small comment. I think this way of like not wrong, but yeah, misunderstanding situation starts earlier. And for me, this philosophical point is that why we seeing us that we are like opposite of managers, or we are like different sides, why we don't see that we are same side, we are doing same thing, we have like same purpose. And then after when we need to leave company, we can also say that we didn't work out. It's not about you or me, or maybe even not about company or field, but we didn't work out, sorry. And maybe we will meet in future in next company, and it will flourish. So yeah.
I've actually heard startup leaders and HR people saying that this is also a two-way street today. It's companies themselves. They maybe in the next few years they want to hire the same person back, and they have to be polite, and you have to encourage people to leave actually today in the startup business, because there aren't enough workers. As in Finland, in Estonia we have the same problem. So you have to make them feel good about leaving, because then maybe they want to come back. Maybe they get some experience in another company and they want to come back when this company has started doing things that they want to do. Okay.
Yeah, I think the good companies already have the policy that they call their left employees before their trial period is ending in this new company, so that if it's not a match, they actually get them back first. So, yeah, and it worked.
It's a rough market. So, do we have any other questions from the audience at this point? Yes.
Yes, thank you for very interesting and very needed discussion. So I'm a career coach, career counselor, so I see a lot of people from both sides, those who are looking for jobs and those who are looking for next changes in their work life, and about the part that the personality has become more important. So how do you prepare for that? Because a lot of people, they apply, they get feedback, if they get that, yes, for skill-wise, experience-wise, everything is there, but there is this mismatch. And on the other part, from the recruiters and HR part, it's also an issue. How do you communicate that your personality or there was not a good fit? So it's kind of this difficult, puzzling situation where you can feel as a job applicant, get really insecure because you don't know what you're doing wrong or if you are wrong. And on the other part, if you don't get any feedback, or it's difficult to give feedback about, it didn't feel right. So, it's a difficult, puzzling situation for both sides, I think. So your comments on that?
Actually, I would say that this is something that at least I have been doing this, that I'm very honest at the beginning when I'm recruiting, and this is something that, does it feel right or not, is the subject of the first discussion or the first meeting, because it's very true. You're actually looking for the skills, as we discussed before, but you also look for the match for the team, match with yourself, and with some people it's stronger and better, and the other one you just don't feel it. So of course it depends on the position as well, but if I'm hiring for my own team, my leaders or to the departments, this is this, I have one here in the audience, and you can ask her, but was it in a topic or not? So, yeah.
Any other comments?
I think we maybe this is like too philosophical or overall comment, but I think we actually live in a new world where this self-management and understanding ourselves is more and more important. So if leaders are more mature and they can analyze themselves and be like human beings, we can maybe talk about even more and more about empathy and being respectful and etc., all those psychological aspects. And then it's not a big deal if someone doesn't, I don't know, hire me because I didn't have this right sparkle in my eye. It's not a thing. I don't take it personally. I can go further and enjoy my life still. But yeah, maybe this overall level of self-management is so boring term for that, but you know what I mean. Being conscious about ourselves, this is something we need to learn more and more.
Jari?
I'm perhaps not expert in that question, but I think you cannot say that your personality does not fit, but perhaps more in terms of how it would be shown in everyday work, that because we got the idea that in situation where you are expected to do this or collaborate with that we get the idea that you would behave in this and this sense. So how this temperament or personality is supposed to be seen in everyday work, in attaining work goals, would be the way to discuss further and not to speak about personality issues. I would beware of that.
So what happens when there are personal traits that do not go along with this company? How to but the experience does. Let's go back to the beginning where I ask which is worse. But what if the experience is perfect and also I don't know, education and everything fits, but the person itself doesn't fit? Is it okay to be honest with them or not?
Certainly it is okay to be honest, and certainly, like I said many times already, that you have to be very, very open. But if everything else fits, I shouldn't be. I think that many people are perhaps a little bit too afraid also of a little bit of friction. I think it's good, at least during my life when I have recruited a lot of persons. I don't want to have like copies of me. That would definitely not be a success story. So I want to really to have a different kind of persons, and that means that I'm taking at least a small risk always when I recruit those persons, because they are not exactly like me. But I think it's only good for the organization, it's good for the team, it's good for the results, it's good for everything. So I don't think that one should be too afraid about that.
Yeah, I have one of the founders of Happy Me, which is software where we also provide such kind of like feedback sessions, and there we use this 360 feedback method. And what I see, those categories what we have put also consist this personal part, and often our clients, they are a bit afraid about that. So you really gonna give me a feedback? You're really gonna say what you mean? Am I ready? Do I want to know that? But if they start like step by step, then they are so thankful and so grateful, because people are nice normally, and they say nice and good things as well. So, and to be conscious is like first step to change things. Firstly, I need to know what is wrong with my communication skills, or maybe I'm too loud, I'm too slow, or whatever. It's good to talk about it, or give like space for such kind of discussions, and then it helps.
Any other questions?
Thank you. The board out discussion has been very interesting. And I wanted to ask about a question I think Yuri made about noticing that younger people tend to be bored out quicker than older people. And I wonder, and I look around the room and I think half the people in the room are looking at their phones even while I'm asking this question. How much of that bored out is a result of an inability to focus, overly distracted by the technology that's all around us, and then how do you as employers help your employees focus and be able to not be distracted so much?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And this has been bothering me since I started to know this age difference. And I found it in very different occupations, in very different organizations and industries. But I have not find the researcher answer what would predict, but I can only speculate this, like you said, things that you mentioned. Also this, that perhaps young people are a bit impatient, that this everyday working is so long-term effort. Nothing special happens all the time there, and you cannot expect this kind of fancy highlights all the time unless you are capable of noticing. And this, I think we seniors can help in this, that, okay, giving positive feedback, now you have proceeded, and did you notice, hey, fantastic that you managed to do this thing, and you learned this, and perhaps also providing these new challenges also to younger employees, not only those super performers or between 35, 45 years of age. Already older ones are again perhaps ignored in poor work companies cultures, but this kind of thing, paying attention to the potentials, listening to the young employees, but also somehow it's of course a challenge for young employees too, that work life is not just an adventure all the time, and there are certain routines, and they are not rewarding intrinsically all the time. It's also this cultural discussion matter that we have YouTube heroes and everybody can be a superstar and all this. I don't know how much it influences how widely young people, but it certainly is in our culture, this kind of expecting this kind of short-term wins, and as the older generation, we hope to be thanked once in a lifetime in our work career. That would be fantastic.
Tina.
Yeah, I think for me answer is involving and engaging. So basically every employee could be part of creating this culture and be like product owner of culture, and this also helps, not putting everyone into silos and you do that and you do that, and that also gives some, like energy and feeling that I'm important or something happens or I can really influence something.
Agne, what is your experience?
It's a really hard question, actually. So, because I think the question was that what the employers can do to help employees to be more concentrated, and I was just thinking, in our company, for example, there are certain rules that you don't have to look at your emails all the time or reply all the time. You can actually do it once a day or something like that. And I think that those things are actually practical ones. And some, I have heard that, of course, there are very extreme cases, but some companies actually have banned the social media sites. So, and of course, as I said, it's very extreme, but you can go to flow, or maybe you just start to read news or something like that. So, and I think that actually the co-workers can support each other even better than the leaders or the company rules or things like that. But this is a very good question, so I will wonder about that more.
So far I have mostly seen challenges in the other directions. I mean, trying then to get a little bit older generation to be more engaged digitally, but I do see and I know this problem that young people have a little bit too high expectations, and I agree with what Jari said also, that I don't know how to deal with it with any other way than communication, talking, and then also, like Jari said, that you have to much more frequently appreciate what they are doing, and give perhaps some small rewards or whatever. So we just have to adjust to the new reality.
So, unfortunately, our time is almost up. So, I hope everyone got some tips to start with more energy on Monday morning. I know I did. You made a lot of points that made me think a lot and think what I, as an employee, can do for myself. So, thank you for that. And see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.